You've heard of the law of attraction. You've heard of manifestation. What almost nobody tells you is why it actually works, and it has nothing to do with the universe reading your mind. It's your brain. Specifically, your subconscious, the part of you that decides, without asking permission, what you notice, what you believe is possible, and what you reach for without even thinking. Scientists have shown that your brain filters out almost everything around you, keeping only what matches what it already expects. Change what your subconscious expects, and you change what you see, what you attempt, and what you attract, automatically. So this isn't about wishing harder. This is about resetting your subconscious mind, and aligning it with the life you actually want. Before we go further, let go of any stress to focus. You don't need to focus hard, memorize anything, or force yourself to believe a single word. The most important thing right now is simply to release. Let your shoulders drop, let your jaw unclench, let your breathing slow down on its own. It's completely fine if your mind stays sharp and alert the whole way through. It's just as fine if you relax so deeply you start to drift, or even fall asleep before this ends. Either way, this works. Your subconscious doesn't need you awake and focused to absorb what matters. It needs consistency, not effort. So find a position that feels supported, close your eyes if that feels right, or simply soften your gaze. There's nothing to do from here except let go, and listen. Money tends to leave people the same way it arrived, quietly, almost accidentally. It shows up through timing, a promotion, an opportunity, and then slips away again, not because those people were careless or lazy, but because their identity never expanded to hold it. Most people assume money leaves because of bad decisions, but decisions are only the symptom. The real cause sits deeper, in self-image, the invisible thermostat that decides how much money feels normal for you to hold. Push past that setting, and your own behavior quietly corrects it back down. An overspend here, a hesitation there, a self-sabotage you don't even notice happening. This is why lottery winners go broke and why a founder's best year is so often followed by collapse. The money arrived, but the identity underneath it never grew to match it. Wealth doesn't stick to effort, it sticks to capacity, and capacity isn't built in a bank account. It's built in self-image, and self-image isn't built by affirmations. It's built by repeated experience, moments you felt capable or powerless around money, safe or ashamed. Your mind remembers those moments and quietly writes rules from them. People like me don't keep money. You rarely hear these rules as sentences. You feel them as hesitation, as guilt when things go well, as a strange comfort whenever you slide back into familiar struggle. This is also where most people go wrong. They try to leap identities overnight, from barely getting by to unstoppable and rich. The mind rejects that jump because it feels fake, and it self-sabotages to close the gap. The real shift is quieter, small, repeated evidence that tells your mind, I'm someone who handles money calmly, someone who keeps what they own. Notice these aren't affirmations, they are descriptions of behavior. An identity follows behavior, not words. So the real question was never how do I make more money? It's who am I when money is present? Everything else builds from that single answer. Self-image isn't something you consciously control. It reveals itself under pressure, an unexpected expense, a sudden rise in income, a new responsibility. That moment shows you what you actually believe about yourself, which is why rewriting self-image means training those moments instead of avoiding them. Wealthy people expose themselves to responsibility early, treating a small amount of money with the same seriousness as a large one, not from fear, but from structure. Structure creates safety, and safety is what allows things to scale. One useful practice here is noticing your own language around money for a single day, without judging it, just noticing. Do you say I can't afford that, or I'm choosing not to spend on that right now? The two sentences describe the same decision, but they train two completely different identities, one of limitation, one of choice. Say it plainly, and let it settle. Identity decides, not effort. Not luck. not intelligence. Every result you've ever produced traces back to that line. When identity shifts, effort finally has something to build on. Until then, effort just circles the same ceiling. Most people assume scarcity comes from not having enough money. That belief alone is what keeps them stuck. Scarcity isn't born in a bank account. It's installed in the mind long before money gets tight. Thoughts tighten first, language tightens, decisions tighten, and only then does money follow. Two people can earn exactly the same income. One feels calm. The other feels constant pressure. Same numbers, completely different inner pattern. When scarcity is active, the mind says be careful, this might not last, don't risk it, and those thoughts feel like wisdom, when they're really just fear wearing a disguise of logic. Once scarcity becomes habitual, it starts running the show automatically, avoiding investment, delaying decisions, choosing short-term comfort over long-term gain. Not from laziness, but because the nervous system is defending against a loss that hasn't even happened. This is why so many people work harder and somehow feel poorer. Effort goes up, anxiety goes up, results stay flat. Real safety was never going to come from more effort only. It comes from internal regulation. Listen to how scarcity shows up in language too. I can't afford that, that's too expensive, people like me don't do that. These phrases sound harmless, but every time you repeat one, you reinforce a ceiling. Because words guide attention, attention guides behavior, and behavior produces results. You can't break scarcity with positive thinking. You break it by interrupting the pattern, slowing your reactions down. Scarcity thrives on urgency. Wealth requires the opposite: stillness, the ability to sit with uncertainty without collapsing into fear. There's a difference worth naming here, between caution and scarcity. Caution asks what could go wrong so you can plan for it. Scarcity asks what could go wrong so you can avoid acting at all. One protects you. The other quietly keeps you small. Learning to tell them apart is one of the most valuable skills you'll ever develop, and it has nothing to do with math. Scarcity is a pattern, not a fact. Scarcity is a pattern, not a fact. Say that again, and let it replace the old reflex. You are not your bank balance. You are not your worst month. You are simply someone learning to respond instead of react, and that alone is enough to begin loosening scarcity's grip. When people hear the word frequency, they often picture something mystical. But it isn't magic, it's simply the pattern you repeat often enough that it becomes automatic. Your habits, your default emotional state, your standard reactions, those create outcomes, not a single hopeful thought. Think of frequency as your baseline, the posture you return to on an ordinary day, not an exciting one, because life responds to what's consistent, not to what's occasionally intense. This is also why understanding an idea once rarely changes anything on its own. Your mind isn't shaped by a single insight, it's shaped by exposure, hearing the same idea again, from a slightly different angle, until it stops feeling new and starts feeling true. The first time you hear something, your mind evaluates it. The 10th time, it starts accepting it. Eventually it becomes background truth, and once an idea locks in like that, behavior follows without effort. You're no longer forcing discipline, you're simply acting in line with who you already believe you are. The wealthy aren't constantly excited, they're internally stable, and that stability is what allows patience, and patience is what allows compounding. Most people are running a scarcity frequency without realizing it, rushing, reacting, chasing relief instead of leverage. A calm, repeated frequency feels slower, which is exactly why most people mistrust it. They mistake calm for laziness, when calm is actually capacity. And this is exactly why repetition matters here, not because you need convincing, but because your mind needs enough exposure to let the new pattern become the automatic one. Your subconscious doesn't just learn from what you tell yourself, it learns from what surrounds you. The people you spend the most time with, the language you hear repeated, even what you take in during the quiet parts of your day. None of this is judged for whether it's true. It's only measured for whether it's familiar, which is exactly why the frequency you're exposed to matters just as much as the frequency you try to think your way into. This is also why a single powerful realization, however true, rarely creates lasting change on its own. It fades, the way any one-time event fades, unless it's given a place to return to. That's the actual function of a session like this one, not a single moment of insight, but a pattern your mind can come back to, again and again, until the insight becomes structure. Calm is not weakness. Calm is capacity. Calm is not weakness. Calm is capacity. Let that settle in, because your baseline, not your best day, not your worst day, just your ordinary one, is quietly writing your financial future. Protect it the way you'd protect any asset, because it is one. Most people believe money comes from effort. Work harder, push longer, grind more hours. And yet you already know people who work endlessly and still struggle, while others move calmly and grow faster with far less visible effort. The difference isn't hustle. It's mental authority, your mind leading, instead of your moods, your fear, your urgency. Without it, hustle turns reactive. You work because you're anxious, you chase because you feel behind. That kind of effort burns energy without building anything stable, because money doesn't respond to desperation. It responds to clarity. Mental authority starts with control over thought, not the absence of doubt, but the refusal to follow it automatically. A thought appears, this is too hard, and authority simply says, noted, continue. It's built through decision integrity, doing what you said you would do, especially when no one's watching. Every kept promise strengthens it. This is also where ownership comes in. A consumer asks, what do I get? An owner asks, what do I build? These patterns show up long before any money does, in how someone treats their time, their decisions, their responsibility. Owners also relate to emotion differently, not by suppressing it, but by not letting it lead. Feeling is not leader, feeling is signal. When emotion spikes, owners delay the decision instead of acting from it, and that single habit protects more than any strategy. This isn't about becoming cold or rigid. It's about putting feeling in its correct seat, so decisions come from principle instead of mood, because principles endure, and moods don't. Owners also think in systems, not tasks. A task ends. A system produces again and again. A consumer asks, what do I need to do today? An owner asks, what structure would make this easier next month? And that single shift alone separates financial trajectories over time, because systems compound and isolated effort doesn't. Decide once. Act without debate. Decide once. Act without debate. This isn't about being harsh with yourself. It's about ending the exhausting negotiation that drains identity one small surrender at a time. Authority is quiet. Authority is calm. Authority is final, and it's available the moment you stop asking permission from your own fear. At some point, something shifts. You stop thinking about money constantly, not because you suddenly have everything, but because money is no longer sitting at the center of your identity. Most people never reach this point, because they keep chasing wealth, and chasing keeps reinforcing the belief that wealth is something outside of them. But wealth was never going to respond to pursuit, only to alignment. Chasing signals lack. Alignment signals readiness. Wealth was never really the goal. It's the byproduct, a reflection of how you think, decide, and hold responsibility. This is where a lot of confusion sits. People assume the wealthy are obsessed with money, when really they're obsessed with process. Money becomes a side effect of correct thinking, repeated over time. By this point, you haven't learned how to get rich quickly. You've learned how to become stable, and stability is what quietly attracts resources, opportunity, and trust. Money tends to arrive this way, not in dramatic boasts, but in steady accumulation, once you stop forcing timelines and stop needing to prove anything. When identity is aligned, money stops creating anxiety and becomes a tool instead. You stop spending to feel worthy, stop saving purely from fear, and start acting from posture instead of pressure. That calm confidence is a signal in itself. It tells the world this person can hold more, and life tends to respond accordingly. You were never chasing a better life. You were building a steadier version of yourself, and when the self becomes steady, life quietly reorganizes around it. None of this is moral, it's mechanical. Money doesn't reward good people or punish bad ones. It simply magnifies who you already are. This is also why money arriving before identity is ready so often creates instability, while money arriving after identity has matured amplifies impact instead. The work was never about the money. It was always about who you become on the way to it. By now, something subtle should be clear. Sustainable wealth doesn't run on motivation. It runs on rhythm, clear thinking, calm decisions, consistent action, repeated until they compound. Resistance was always rooted in fear, fear in instability, and instability dissolves through structure, not force. When the mind finally feels safe, it stops scanning for threats and starts noticing possibility instead. You are not chasing wealth. You are becoming someone wealth stays with. You are not chasing wealth. You are becoming someone wealth stays with. Let that be the line that remains, because it's no longer something you need to believe. It's simply what's true now. There's nothing left you need to do right now, nothing to force, nothing to affirm loudly, nothing to prove. Just one quiet understanding, however much of it you're still holding on to, you don't attract money. You become someone money stays with. Let that settle, not as motivation, but as identity, and let the rest happen on its own. The ideas here aren't instructions, they are patterns, and patterns work best when you stop trying to hold on to them and let repetition do the work instead. You don't need to remember a single line for it to count. Your body tends to show it first, an easier breath, a bit more steadiness, a quiet sense that something has shifted, even if you can't quite name what. You may notice your breathing has slowed, your body has softened, and your mind has stopped arguing. That's not an accident, that's alignment. You don't need to think about money right now, plan anything, or hold on to a single word. This wasn't about action. It was about installation, and installation works best exactly like this: relaxed, unfocused, released. You don't change identity in one sitting, or through one decision. You change it by returning to this same calm frequency again and again, whether you remember hearing it or not, until it simply feels normal. So if you're relaxed and still fully aware, that's fine. If your mind has already started to drift, that's fine too. You don't have to believe any of this right now. Belief comes on its own, the same quiet way it always does. You are no longer chasing wealth. You are becoming someone it stays with, and that's already begun.